These, you've got the mother of all owls, so over there you can have a look at, but because I'd left that in Hong Kong. But these are rather sweet. This one on the right has got Anorexia nervosa. There's a pregnant owl here. That's unusual in owls, but she's got breasts and she's clearly pregnant. A great little family of owls, and the way the wings are done is highly distinctive with this little twirl, which the big one there is shown. I put them with the mother. These are little toggles, and presumably they came from the same tomb group. Now these two discs show another feature of Hongshan, which is that their affection for the material and the shapes in the material in carving it. And I see this as a his and hers piece, certainly, almost certainly from the same block of jade, consecutive cuts. And, you know, these very animated rhomboidal discs. I've not seen any other rhomboid-shaped discs. Sexual, right, okay. Anybody who's asleep can wake up. They definitely were into sex. There's no question about it. Sex was important. And some of the finest erotica in the world, the next time that China did erotica apparently was in the Tang dynasty. This is a piece that actually my wife gave it to me for my 60th birthday, but I did ask for it. But it's rather sweet because if you look at, he's having a great time. And she's straining a bit. But I think she understands a little bit about female sexuality. She's not inhibited. But he had the sister piece, which I passed on to another collector, but I photographed it first, where he's straining and she's having a great time. And I'm in great humour. There may be a problem. Oh, these are rather sweet. I've got lots of these little ones. I mean, obviously the guy who was buried with these was sex obsessed, and I'm trying to carry it. But he was also had other ideas. I mean, look at this little skull humanoid in the middle. Do the faces look Chinese? Another good question. That one that's looking up at us doesn't. I mean, we don't know whether this was a minority culture now. We don't believe it was Han. There's a bit of what we might call cross-species sex goes on in some of these. This one is probably apocryphal. I mean, it's quite difficult for a bird to have sex with a woman. The bird seems to be quite happy perched there. This, you can close your eyes, anybody who's shocked by bestiality. This probably is more realistic. There's quite a lot of it. Very fine piece of jade, and the dog doesn't seem to be having too bad a time either. There's the reproductive figures. I mean, I particularly like this pendant, where it's clearly a god of fertility, or a fertility pendant with the womb, etc. And when you turn it round, you can see a baby crying, or at least I do. Lovely double idea. Right, okay, now we're doing all right. Authentication of archaic jade. How do we know these are real? Well, these are authentic. Well, I mean, there's what I would call subjective evidence. The price is very low. If you're paying 2.5 million US for something, then you'd better be sure that it's the right thing. If you're paying $250 US, maybe you can afford to make the odd mistake. The quality, the art, the originality, and also the source. I mean, but I would regard the source as being subsidiary. It's quite interesting because James Griffith, who's a fellow collector, I'd never really thought that anybody in the jade market would have any, interesting jade, and he came along. He got some pieces from Mr. Wong, and Mr. Wong. I mean, there was just one little feeder piece among all the reproductions, one little piece of Hongshan. James picked this up and said, "Have you got any more like this?" So he pulls out a drawer of them. There's no point, you've got to cater for both markets. There's absolutely no point in selling an authentic piece to somebody who doesn't know what they're looking for. But we're not supposed to be talking about the subjective. Oh, by the way, this you can see in the Hollywood Road any day. Poor chap, I just assembled some of his pieces, made to look as if I was interested, and took a photograph. I mean, I've got 3 pieces, modern reproductions. The iconography is right, the jade is wrong, you know, they're too perfect, they, you know, and you pay actually probably a bit more for each of these than I'm paying for ones with internal evidence of authenticity. Objective, well, weathering. I'm just going to talk about weathering and accidents of production. And a microscope is extremely useful. And at the bottom right is a camera, so I can take these, photograph them on the computer, which is very useful. But chemical weathering, obviously, these are, once a thing's been carved, it's not going to be subjected to mechanical weathering. That's not going to work, I mean, unless it's in the bottom of a stream. But chemical weathering, I mean, it's a very interesting experiment geologically to carve something, make the surface perfectly smooth, and then subject it to water and things for 5,000 years, or roots. But water and dissolved minerals are its main agents. This is another favourite of mine. It's a disc about that size. And it's got 4 figures in the corner, clearly having a nice time on something that's oval. But what I want to show, look at this, the change at the top of the image. And also this area down, oh dear, yeah, okay, there's an area here and there's areas here. Well, we'll look at both of these on the same piece. Must have been buried all the same time. Now the area at the top has got these fantastic expanded crystals which we picked off and looked at, and they are, I mean, they have the same composition as tremolite, so they are hydrated tremolite crystals, hydrated nephrite crystals. They do actually contain a bit of iron as well, so one should use the term nephrite if there's any iron in it. All over the piece. Now, intuitively, the idea that you could force that process in a hurry, to me, it's just intuitively wrong. But there's a potential for doing some X-ray crystallography and actually finding out, you know, doing a bit of proper chemistry. But the same process in the same piece, we're going to see now, rushed. So the crystals fractured while unzipping. And that's what you get there. That's much more common appearance with. And maybe you could recreate this process all over a piece. But when you come to very, very focal changes, it does seem less credible. Weathering into cracks. Tremolite expands as it takes up water, forcing small cracks to open. And on that same piece, if you turn it over, you've got this large crack, and it shows a feature which I think I understand. On this fracture, crack is going obliquely into the piece, and on the oblique side, you get this. The colour is different because you're getting light reflected back through the semi-transparent jade. It's reflected back from that white surface. So you always see that, and I believe it's evidence, some evidence of prolonged burial. And at the edges, of course, this is raised up because it's been forced up. Now you see some. This is Jenny's. I gave her this, and she wears it quite a lot, and it's a lovely cloud. But on the other side, you've got an area where the jade's actually broken away from the surface, and you can see you're also getting some staining as presumably iron and other minerals go in with the water. So these are features. This piece, which we've just seen, remember I said look at the bottom here.